Hey everyone, Oldies DJ Matt here, welcoming you to episode 1 of my one-off 8-part internet video series called An Introduction to Deep Diving into Rock and Roll Music of the 60s and 70s and some 80s. This video series is intended for younger folks who are discovering this music for the first time, probably on classic hits radio or classic album rock radio, or maybe you found some Spotify channels. And I'm noticing that these resources are extremely narrow. They're cherry picking the most popular songs or the ones that they think will help keep you listening to the station so that you buy more product from the advertisers or whatever. This is not what the music was about at the time. It was about variety, it was about depth, it was about a lot of creativity, not as much about commercialization at first. So I'm providing this series because I love the music, and we're going to consider this kind of a starter kit. That's why it's a one-off series. We're going to talk about albums at each episode, 5 or 6, maybe 7 albums. We'll talk a little bit about them, what the act was doing, what the albums are like, help you build a collection. Then we'll also take a look at a kind of a lost hit single. I'm going to send you off to view it on YouTube. I'm going to pick on singles that did not chart high so that there's a chance I'm going to introduce you to something new. And I'm also going to introduce you to radio stations that are available on the internet and other programs where you can hear this music true to form, the way it was meant to be heard, presented by people who were there at the time. I was there at the time. I was 5 when the Beatles came to America. So we're going to get started. We're going to talk about 5 albums in this first episode. We're only going to talk about each act only once. So 43 or 44 albums, 10 or 12 hit singles, we're going to be talking about a whole lot of different acts. So we're going to get started with the Beatles. And this is their second album, called With the Beatles. It was released in England toward the end of 1963. Now you may have heard that here in the US a different record company had the rights to the Beatles' music, and they collected the songs individually and released them on different albums here in the US. So the songs on With the Beatles actually appeared on 2 different albums here in the US. But eventually that practice ended, and starting in the mid-80s, I think around 1987, the American record company that had these rights reverted to the regular British releases. So these days you can get With the Beatles without any problem. In fact, if you get it on CD, you're going to get a nicely remastered version of it. And the reason I'm mentioning this album in particular is because the Beatles are loved by younger music fans, absolutely. But I've noticed that when it comes to collecting music, the earlier albums are often passed up in favor of the music they did from the midpoint of their career onward. And that's understandable because they became much more innovative, starting with the Rubber Soul album. I guess Revolver is where most Beatles record collectors begin. That came out in 1966. And everything after that, very creative, very creative both as musicians and songwriters. They hadn't developed that quite yet here in 1963. But the Beatles are an amazing sounding group, better than most any other regular band that was around at the time. So yeah, this album has 8 original songs and 6 cover songs. Definitely count me in. The original songs on this album, It Won't Be Long, All My Lovin', Little Child isn't exactly their deepest songwriting, but it's a good rocker. There's a lot of rockers on this album. The group discovered that sold well with the fans. Roll Over Beethoven is here. The cover songs are chosen very well. Two Motown songs, two wonderful Motown songs. Please, Mr. Postman, I love every version of that song. And You Really Got a Hold on Me, which is presented here as a nice Lennon and McCartney duet. Till There Was You, probably one of their best ballads. So don't pass up the old Beatles material as you start collecting their music. This is a heck of a fun record to listen to. And you can also tell they were still having fun. I don't think it became work yet. They had more time to prepare for this album than they did their first album, Please Please Me. And they had more experience in the studio. They brought more instruments in. So I don't know that... I think they still liked each other and got along. So, with the Beatles, 1963, album number 1. Okay, album number 2, released in 1972, Stevie Wonder and Talking Book. Not long before this, I think a couple years before this, Stevie Wonder, now an adult, negotiated a new record contract with Motown, which gave him complete creative control over everything on his albums, including what songs would be released as a single. That is very difficult for any artist to get. I'm sure Motown hated giving him this kind of control, because Motown liked being in control. But the Motown was rewarded, because Stevie Wonder would become one of the most exciting top album artists of the 70s. Talking Book was the first of 4 albums that just skyrocketed him in status and showed off his tremendous capability as a singer, songwriter, musician, record producer, way ahead of his time as a producer in the studio. He plays most of the instruments on most of the songs. He's a great drummer, by the way. So Talking Book, this particular record is a pretty straightforward collection of, if you like, early 70s soul, funk, R&B. It's all here. He brings in his buddy Jeff Beck to knock out a couple rockers, a young sax player named David Sanborn. But really, this album shows off the genius of Stevie Wonder, which he only developed further on subsequent albums. Songs in the Key of Life is the one that's best known. The next 3 albums that came after this all won a Grammy for Best Album of the Year. In fact, when Paul Simon won a Grammy for the album Still Crazy after all these years, I'm pretty sure that in his acceptance speech, he thanked Stevie Wonder for not releasing an album that year. I just love this picture, by the way. You don't usually see Stevie in a non-performing position, with his shades off. And anyway, the hits on this album were You Are the Sunshine of My Life and Superstition. I Believe When I Fall in Love, It Will Be Forever. Could have, perhaps should have been released as a single as well. It's a great song. Highly recommended. Stevie Wonder, Talking Book, 1972. Next, we're going to go to 1982 for the final studio album by the group Roxy Music. This is called Avalon. And you may not have heard of this record. It was a major international hit. Roxy Music is British, but not so much here in the U.S. It is one of the very best mellow alternative rock albums of the decade. In fact, Rolling Stone magazine put this album on the top 100 albums of the 80s, a list that was published in 1989, put this album in at number 30. Very respectable position. So, how to describe it? I mean, you probably haven't heard this. And if you've heard Roxy Music, one of their best-known songs is Love is the Drug, which came out in 1976. This album sounds nothing like that. The group's leader, songwriter, keyboard player, singer, Brian Ferry, adapted well to moving into the 80s and developed a really good style, but avoided some of the pop excesses of the 80s. There's a lot of keyboard layering, but not so much of it that you feel drenched in it. You're not drenched in reverb. There's a lot of percussion, but it's analog percussion and it's not too high in the mix. The songs are pop songs, most of them, but out of the ordinary in some way. There were two major pop hits from this album. You'll hear them occasionally on the Sirius XM station First Wave. One of them is More Than This. The other one is the title song, which features a stunning lead vocal, I should say stunning guest vocalist at the end of the song. She just improvises a beautiful soprano sequence, which is amazing. Here in the U.S., the song Won't You Take a Chance With Me, Take a Chance With Me, was released as a single, and it's baffling that did not become a major top 20 pop hit. So it's mellow, but it's not so typical that you're going to feel like you've heard this kind of thing before. Very good album, highly recommended. Roxy Music, Avalon, 1982. Next, Chicago 5. This came out in 1972 and is actually the group's fourth studio album. Chicago started out as a great album band, and I get the impression, because there were 3, sometimes 4 people in the group writing songs, that they basically wrote and performed the kind of songs that they wanted to, focusing on the album, but fortunately for them, they also managed to include a couple songs that the record company could use as a pop hit, sometimes needing some creative editing to get it down to pop hit length. But at this point in the early 70s in particular, they were very innovative, and their early albums often had kind of a special feel for each of the albums. So, for example, their second album called Chicago, which most people call Chicago 2, this album has a lot of classical influences and some of the most beautiful horn arrangements you'll ever hear. And a few years later, Chicago 7, this was a double LP. About the first half hour of it is jazzy instrumentals. I don't remember hearing any of that ever on the radio. So the feel of Chicago 5, I would call this progressive rock. They're not exactly channeling Yes or Emerson, Lake and Palmer or anything like that. In fact, there's no synthesizers. It has complex melodies, interesting chord changes, some challenging musicianship, really interesting horn arrangements, great drumming coming from Danny Serafin. The album only has one significant hit on it, which is not a progressive song, Saturday in the Park. They released Dialogue Parts 1 and 2 as a single in an edited form. That didn't do too well. On the album here, that song becomes a real showcase for guitarist Terry Kath, and what a guitarist he was. He gradually takes that song over as it progresses, and they had to edit the song down to radio length, and they ended up editing most of his jamming out. So you're going to hear Dialogue Parts 1 and 2 there. I guess maybe 1 or 2 other songs from the album could have been released as singles, but it is a progressive rock album with some other interesting moments in it. State of the Union is a great funky song and an amazing vocal by Pete Cetera. You hear him sing on that like you don't hear him sing on commonly heard Chicago songs. And by the way, this is the last album that does not contain a love ballad sung by Pete Cetera. That begins on the next album, Chicago 6, with Just You and Me. And for many of us, that was the slippery slope and leading to adult contemporary. After that, not long after that, you had If You Leave Me Now, and then Baby What a Big Surprise, and then No Tell Lover, and we all know what happened after that. But he is a great singer, and he really knocks it out of the park with State of the Union. Other great songs on this album, All Is Well Again. That one has one of the most interesting bridges, a horn section solo, a progressive rock horn section solo. I don't know how else to describe it. Oh, one other thing about this album, for a lot of Chicago fans, their debut album called Chicago Transit Authority is often considered their best. And most of the songs on that debut album were written by keyboard player and sometimes vocalist Robert Lamb. This is the only other album where Robert also wrote most of the songs. He sings Saturday in the Park, by the way. So, Chicago 2, 1972. Sorry, Chicago 5, 1972. Oh. Next, probably the most popular album rock band, guitar band, Led Zeppelin. This is their debut album, the self-titled album. Some people refer to this as Led Zeppelin 1. This came out in January 1969. Like its follow-up album, Led Zeppelin 2, this album focuses almost completely on hard rock. Led Zeppelin 2 was much more popular, and most of the songs on Led Zeppelin 2 seem to be built around some kind of riff, like Livin', Lovin', Made, Whole Lotta Love, Moby Dick. This album features more different kinds of songs. There are 2 straight-ahead blues songs on this album. I Can't Quit You, really good blues soloing by Jimmy Page on that one, and a long, slow blues romp on side 1 called You Shook Me. This one contains a complete verse of instrumental solos by Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones on Hammond organ, and Robert Plant on harmonica. Yeah. This album has a couple, seems to be wannabe hit singles. Your Time Is Gonna Come. Another example of John Paul Jones playing a great Hammond organ introduction. Good Times, Bad Times, that actually did chart as a single. That was the first time I heard Led Zeppelin. 2 well-known songs on this album, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You and Dazed and Confused. This album also ends with the song that they used to complete and close their concerts when they were performing live. It's like an 8-minute long thing that has all the appearances of a grand finale for an album, for a concert on album. So listening to this album start to finish is really quite a thrill. And one other thing about the way it's produced, and Jimmy Page is the producer here, he connects many of the songs together in a segue with no gap. And when you have songs running into each other like that, sometimes it's very clever. The transition into communication breakdown is a train wreck. It's wonderful. The transition from You Shook Me into Dazed and Confused is one of a kind. It's really very well done. And one of the things I like about LPs compared to CDs is when you have these songs running into each other, it's always going to be seamless. When you have a CD, unless you have the right equipment or the right, if the song is read into a digital library, you have the right music player, there will be a gap between songs that are meant to flow into each other. It's hard to get gapless playback on digital music. So that's one of the reasons I love LPs. That and the fact that some of the LPs I'm showing you in future episodes have some amazing album art. So Led Zeppelin, debut album, 1969. So that completes the albums that I'm going to introduce you to in episode 1. There are going to be more albums at the start of each episode. And now I'm going to we're going to start talking about hit songs that might be lost hits. I'm going to pick one or two songs that did not make the top 20 for each of these episodes. But since I can't play the songs on the episodes because of licensing, I'm going to put a link to the YouTube video, both for these songs that I'm picking out, both on my own YouTube channel, Oldies DJ Matt, and on my Blue Sky social media channel, also called Oldies DJ Matt. I recommend that you use the link that I provide to listen to these songs, because I picked out the best audio version of it that I could find. So our first lost hit comes from 1970, and it's by Mary Hopkin. Does that name ring a bell? Those were the days, my friend. Yes, that Mary Hopkin. Those Were the Days was a major international hit, I think in the late summer or early fall of 1968. And many folks who got interested in this music think that Mary Hopkin was a one-hit wonder. She actually had 3 more hits here in the U.S. She is British. And I'm going to introduce you to one of them. They were not big hits. The song I'm going to introduce you to is called Tema Harbor. And it sounds nothing at all like Those Were the Days. Actually, none of her hits sound like Those Were the Days. That was a one-off special project. But Tema Harbor is a tropical sounding song. I guess I would describe it as a Jimmy Buffett song before there was Jimmy Buffett. I'll just, at this point, your homework assignment is to go listen to Tema Harbor. Find the link for the YouTube video of Tema Harbor and listen to it and enjoy. Mary Hopkin, Tema Harbor, 1970 rather. This album, by the way, I think is out of print, but this covers all of the singles that she had here in the U.S. and a few others. Okay, I'm going to close out this video by introducing you to Pop Gold Radio and that station's founder and main DJ, Don Tandler. This is a radio station that's on the internet at popgoldradio.com, and it is a 24/7 oldies radio station that plays music from the 50s, 60s, and 70s the way it was meant to be heard. They have a deep playlist. They include a lot of jingles. It is commercial free, and it's available anytime. And this is a good way to get an introduction to a wide variety of music from this era, much more than you're going to get on if you're lucky enough to find an oldies radio station. They go deeper, and you're going to hear your favorites here, but you're also going to hear some stuff that you don't hear very often anywhere else. On Saturday afternoons, the station's founder and legendary oldies DJ Don Tandler does a program called The Time Machine. It usually starts at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. But you need to go to the website, popgoldradio.com, and check. Sometimes he starts the program early if he has a long show or a special topic. The Time Machine is a countdown program. He picks a date in history and plays songs from either the national charts on this day with extras, or sometimes a local radio station chart. New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Philadelphia. So if it was on the radio at all during this time, including major album cuts, he will play it in this program that lasts about 3 hours, sometimes longer, commercial free again. He covers it in great depth. The the local charts are interesting. WABC in New York, KHJ in Los Angeles, WLS in Chicago. Sometimes they had different songs on them. So even if you were lucky enough to hear a radio station that plays a lot of oldies, you're bound to hear some things that you did not know about listening to the Time Machine. It's a lot of fun to listen to. Highly recommend it. The audio on Pop Gold Radio is also very good. So, and the music player, if you're viewing it on the internet, always plays the while playing the song, always gives the song, artist, and title if you're interested. So, popgoldradio.com. I think all you have to do is say Pop Gold Radio into Alexa. It's also available on popular internet listening apps like TuneIn. Highly recommended. Great place to listen to the music in depth. We are going to talk more about some programs on Pop Gold Radio in future episodes. I'm going to introduce you to the work of Tom Natoli, Rich Appel, Bob Radel, and another. I'm also going to introduce you to another oldies radio station called Rewound Radio in future episodes. So there's a lot to talk about. I invite you to come back. We'll look at 5 or 6 more albums, another couple lost hits, and more places where you can hear this music the way it was meant to be heard, in depth. So I invite you to come back. New episodes should be posted about every 2 weeks. Thank you for joining me, Oldies DJ Matt. Peace.